You ever drive through the desert at night? Not the kind you see in postcards, no. I mean the black kind. The kind where the sand eats the light and the stars look like they're hanging too low. That kind of silence doesn't feel empty. It feels awake. They used to tell me the desert remembers, that every footprint, every echo, every scream just sinks into it, waiting for someone to listen again. I didn't believe that. Not until the night my radio picked up a voice that wasn't supposed to be there. Unit 31, respond. Do you copy? I was 31, and I was the only one on patrol that night. It started like any other call. Report came in around 10:37. Unidentified chanting near the old hogans at Black Mesa. Locals said they'd seen lights flickering out there. Said it wasn't the first time this month. Normally I'd write it off as teenagers drinking or folks doing night rituals. But dispatch told me the caller hung up mid-sentence. They said the last thing heard was breathing, right next to the phone. So I went. Because that's what you do when you wear the badge out here. You answer, even when you don't want to. The road to Black Mesa is 30 miles of cracked asphalt and silence. No houses, no light, just the long, flat bones of the desert stretching forever. I rolled the window down to keep from falling asleep. The air smelled like metal and old rain. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote started howling. One of those long, lonely cries that sounds too close. And right when it stopped, I swear I heard something else. Not echo, not wind. Something repeating it. Not real. Real. Not real. The headlights caught a figure on the roadside, just for a second. Tall, thin, standing perfectly still. I hit the brakes, sand kicked up, my heart punched my ribs. And when I looked again, nothing. Just the wind and the road. You try to tell yourself it's the dark playing tricks. That's what training does, tells you to look for patterns, for logic. But logic doesn't explain when your radio starts playing your own voice. 1097, investigating structure. That was me, from a report 2 weeks earlier. Except I hadn't said anything. Not yet. I checked the playback. No record of it, just silence. But I heard it. Every word. I should have turned around. Should have gone home. Written it off as a glitch. But I didn't. Something about the call, the location, the air. It felt personal, like the desert had been waiting for me. I reached the first fence post marking tribal land. The air changed there, heavier somehow, the kind that presses on your chest, like the air doesn't want you breathing it. An old woman once told me, some places out here don't like to be looked at after dark. And I was about to find out what she meant. The hogans stood like broken teeth against the starlight. 5 of them, half buried, burned long ago. I parked the cruiser, stepped out with the flashlight, and the world went quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no bugs, no hum of the truck engine behind me. Just a stillness so loud it felt like sound itself had stopped breathing. I called out, "Tribal police!" Anyone here? Nothing. Then from the largest ruin, a single drum beat. 1, then silence again. I swept the beam across the sand. Fresh tracks, barefoot, small, leading straight into the collapsed hogan. The kind of tracks that shouldn't be warm to the touch. But when I knelt to check, I felt heat coming from the ground, like something had just walked there. I radioed in, No response. Only my own breathing coming back through static. Dispatch, this is Unit 31, copy. Then my own voice again, delayed, distorted. Dispatch, this is Unit 31, copy. The same words, the same tone, only half a second late. That's when I realized the reflection on my cruiser window was moving. But I wasn't. It was smiling. I wasn't. The flashlight flickered. I heard breathing just behind me. Soft, wet, human. I turned, light slicing through dust, and saw nothing but the old juniper post in the center of the ruins. Someone had carved symbols into it. Reversed protection signs. Wrong way wards. And on the ground, half buried in sand, a wooden idol. Small, carved from juniper. Fresh. I picked it up. It was warm. Go home, Eli. Go home, Eli. Go home. I dropped it and stepped back. The desert stayed silent, but the air was alive. It was like standing inside a held breath. When I reached my truck again, the driver's side door was open. I know I locked it. I always lock it. The radio was on, playing my voice. 1097 investigating structure. The same words, the same tone, but I wasn't speaking. I shut the door, threw it in gear, and drove like hell until the ruins disappeared in my mirrors. Didn't stop until I hit the edge of the highway, headlights reflecting off a green sign. Welcome to Navajo County. That's when the radio whispered, my own voice again, but quieter. You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come, I said. They found that recording buried in sand 3 years later. Half of it was static. The rest doesn't make sense. Not real. Real. Not real. They say the desert doesn't forget. You can cover its tracks, bury its bones, silence its stories, but the desert remembers everything. That morning, I tried to tell myself it was just the night playing tricks, that the voice on the radio, my voice, was static, nothing more. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something out there had learned my name. The report said I was to follow up on unidentified chanting and lights near Black Mesa, the same location as before, same time, same coordinates. The dispatcher sounded nervous when she gave me the order, like she wanted to say more but didn't. The road shimmered in the morning heat. No other cars, no houses, just the sound of wind cutting through the door seals and the faint rhythmic thump of the tires over old cracks. Every so often I thought I saw movement along the ridges, shapes that didn't belong to trees or birds. By the time I reached the ruins, the sun was high, but the air felt colder. The hogans stood like broken teeth half swallowed by sand. I parked, turned off the engine, and for a long time just listened. Silence. No wind, no birds, no hum from the cruiser. It was as if sound itself had been drained from the place. I turned on my body cam. Unit 31, on scene. Daylight follow-up. The words echoed flat, lifeless, like someone else said them and I just mouthed along. I started checking each structure one by one. The first was gone, only splinters and scorched posts. The second stood crooked, half its roof caved in. I ducked inside, flashlight on. The air was thick with the smell of ash and something sweet, like burnt sage. I stepped carefully, scanning the dirt floor. There, in the center, was a ring of soot, perfect circle, not natural. And right in the middle, a feather, black, raven, charred at the tip. I knelt down. The sand was warm, not from the sun, from underneath, like something breathing beneath the earth. That's when I noticed it. My shadow against the far wall. It wasn't mine. The shape was wrong. The head stretched, bent, horns curling where there shouldn't be any. I blinked, stepped to the side. The shadow didn't follow. My stomach went cold. Then I blinked again, and it was gone. Soft whisper, not real. Real, not real. I whispered it too, without meaning to. Like saying the words would fix reality somehow. I stood, called dispatch. Static. Tried again. More static. So I started logging by hand. Times, descriptions, temperatures, anything to keep control. That's when gravel crunched behind me. A single, heavy step. I turned fast, hand on weapon. Nothing there. But in the far distance, where the horizon blurs against the sky, something shimmered. A figure, tall and motionless. I blinked, and it was gone. I packed up some things, samples, soil, feather, and the wooden idol I'd found half buried in the sand the night before. When I picked it up, it was warm again, almost hot, like holding someone's pulse. I sealed it in an evidence bag, wiped my hands, and walked back toward the truck. That's when I froze. The driver's door was open. I knew I'd locked it. I always lock it. Inside, the seat was reclined, and the air smelled like sweat. Not mine. I stared at it for a long time, heart thudding in my throat. Then the radio came alive. 1097, investigating structure. It was my voice. The same tone, the same words I'd said last night. But I wasn't speaking. I slammed the door and drove until the ruins disappeared behind me, and the desert looked empty again. That night, under the harsh light of the station desk lamp, I played back my footage. The body cam worked fine, until the moment I stepped inside the second hogan. Then it froze. One frame. Me, staring into the lens, my eyes blacked by shadow. I tried to print it. The printer groaned once and spat out a blank page, then another. And on the second page, faint gray letters typed themselves across the paper. Go home, Eli. I stopped too. I sat there, staring at the words. They looked wet, fresh. Then, from the corner of my eye, the reflection in the dark computer screen moved. It smiled. Sudden, sleep didn't come easy that night. When it finally did, it came in flashes. Heat, noise, a voice whispering my name through the static of half-dreams. At 3:30 a.m., the dogs outside started howling. One barked, another joined, and then just stopped. I sat up, heart pounding. For a few seconds, the world sounded hollow, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Moonlight spilled over the yard. The sand shimmered like skin, breathing. Then I saw movement near the fence, something low, crawling, too fast to be human. I grabbed my gun, flashlight, and radio. Barefoot, I stepped into the dust. The smell hit me first. Metal, sage, rain that never fell. "Tribal police!" I called. The desert swallowed the words. Then, Laughter, soft, single, behind me. I turned. Empty. The doghouse door swung open, chain still latched. Inside, no dog, just the leash stretched taut, pointing down, like something had pulled it through the sand. The radio on my belt clicked alive. My own voice whispered, 10-97, investigating structure. Exactly like before. I froze. Then far across the flats, one drum beat, two. Then silence. I didn't sleep again. Morning burned hot and colorless. I drove north to Whitecone to see Samuel, old friend, old medicine man. He was waiting outside his house before I even stopped. Didn't shake my hand. Didn't smile. "You still have it," he said. "The carving?" He nodded. "Bring it in." Inside smelled of cedar and dust. He placed the idol on woven reed, muttered words in Diné, then spat into the dirt beside it. "That thing," he said, "isn't Navajo, isn't Hopi, isn't any people. It's from when the sand was still wet, older than prayer." I wanted to laugh, but it came out thin, forced. He didn't. "It doesn't steal faces," he said. "It steals memory." I asked if it could take a name. He looked up, eyes tired. "If it calls you by name, Eli, it already has." A spat out behind him. Just a curtain shifting, I told myself, but I left before he finished the blessing he started. Back at the station, I tried to prove it all wrong, pulled up the dash cam footage again. At 22 minutes in, the screen tore. A shape behind me, same uniform, same badge, mouth open wider than human. I paused it, and my reflection in the monitor smiled. The lights flickered. Footsteps echoed down the hall, slow, measured, heavy. The building was empty. "Who's there?" No answer. Then the printer in records choked to life. One page slid out, then another. Each line the same 3 words. Not real. Real. Not real. I turned back to the screen. Video gone. Only black glass, and in it, my reflection still grinning. That night, I packed to leave. Just for a few days, I told myself. As I locked the trailer, something tapped on the window behind me. I turned. My reflection stood there, smiling, but my mouth didn't move. I stepped back. The reflection stayed frozen. By morning, the window was cracked. From the inside. I kept a journal after that night. Not by choice. Out of fear. If I didn't write it down, I'd start forgetting. And that's what it wanted. The handwriting changed over the days. Smaller, tighter. Letters pressed into the paper like I was trying to carve them in. Sometimes I'd find entries I didn't remember writing. Whole sentences I'd swear weren't mine. One of them said, "Stop calling your name." I don't even know what that means. I replayed all the footage I had, dash cam, body cam, station cameras. Everything looked fine until the same timestamp, 22:04. Then, blur, distortion, a flicker that almost looked like me, stepping into frame when I was already there. I tried to report it to the regional office, but every time I picked up the phone, the line was dead. When it rang back, I heard myself. "Unit 31, come home." I dropped the receiver. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming anymore. Even the daylight felt wrong. Too bright, too sharp. The horizon shimmered as if it was breathing. I told myself to focus on facts, evidence, the wooden idol, the soot ring, the reversed symbols. Something logical tied them together, something human. I drove back to the ruins, again. The road felt longer this time, like it stretched itself when I wasn't looking. Halfway there, the radio came alive without touching it. A dozen voices whispering beneath static. Some sounded like people I knew, some like people I'd forgotten. I turned it off, but the sound didn't stop. Not real. Real, not real. By the time I reached the mesa, the sun was setting. Everything was exactly as before. Burned wood, half-buried ruins. Except for one thing. The tracks. Bare footprints leading to the hogan. And another set, deeper, wider, leading out. I followed them until they stopped at the spot where I'd parked last time. They ended right beside my tire marks. As if someone had been standing there, waiting for me. I radioed in again, just to hear a voice. "Dispatch, this is Unit 31, following up Black Mesa investigation." The reply came instantly. "Unit 31, copy that." But the voice wasn't dispatch. It was mine. Same tone, same breath pattern. I turned off the radio and just sat there, staring at the hogan. Inside, the soot ring was gone. The floor looked freshly swept, and in the center, the juniper carving. It wasn't sealed in my truck anymore. It was here. My hands trembled. I picked it up, felt heat pulse through my palm, like touching skin. Then I heard movement behind me. Soft steps circling the outside of the ruin. Sand shifting, measured, human. I called out. No answer. The steps stopped right at the doorway. I ransed my flashlight, but the door was empty. Only the sound of wind and my own ragged breath. When I looked down again, the carving was gone. That night I called Samuel again. He didn't answer. Instead, someone picked up and whispered, "You left it open." I hung up, checked every door, every window in the trailer. All locked. But in the reflection of the hallway mirror, the back door was wide open. I turned, closed tight, looked back, still open in the reflection. "Don't turn around." I did. Nothing there. But the smell, that burnt sage sweetness, was thick enough to taste. I slept with the lights on, gun on the nightstand. Around 4 a.m., the radio on the counter came alive again. My voice said, "Stop writing it down." By morning, the journal page was gone, torn clean from the spine. I searched the trailer, found it under the bed, folded, soaked in something dark. Words barely legible. "It remembers through you." I threw it in the fire pit outside, watched it burn, curl, vanish. But the next day, it was back on my desk, unburned, still wet. That's when I stopped pretending this was something I could report. Because whatever this was, it wasn't just following me. It was inside the memory of what I'd already done. Not real, real, not real. That's when I stopped pretending this was something I'd already done. Sleep, wake, patrol. They blurred together like someone had smudged time itself. The desert felt heavier now. Even the light seemed thick, as if it had to push to reach me. Every reflection in glass looked off by a heartbeat. When I blinked, it didn't blink back. I started keeping the radio off, but sometimes it turned itself on. Never loud, just a soft crackle, like breathing through static. And beneath that, words. Low, slow, almost kind. You don't need to remember. I caught myself talking to it sometimes. Not like a madman, but like a man trying not to be one. I'm not afraid of you, I'd say. Silence. Then whisper, echoing my own words. I'm not afraid of you. Only slower, the kind of slower that feels older. The next time I went into town, people acted strange. Clerk at the gas station froze when I asked for cigarettes. Wouldn't take the money from my hand. Just stared at it, like something invisible was crawling on my skin. A woman outside the diner whispered to her friend when I walked past. She said, "That's him." The one they buried, I wanted to turn back and ask what she meant. But I didn't, because part of me already knew. Back at the trailer, the air inside was wrong, cooler, still. The kind of stillness you only hear in recordings. The walls hummed faintly, not electricity, but memory. I could feel it in my teeth. Every object in that room seemed shifted, not missing, just different, like someone had rearranged everything by memory, not sight. My boots were on the wrong side of the door. The picture of my parents faced the wall. And on the table, the wooden idol sat, even though I burned it yesterday. It looked darker this time, the carvings deeper, almost like they were moving when I didn't look straight at them. I reached for it, and the radio turned on again. Eli. It wasn't my voice this time. It was hers. The voice from the first call. The woman who'd reported the chanting. "It's not gone," she whispered. "It's remembering you now." Then a sound. Faint drumming beneath her words, like something beating from the other side of the signal. And over it, my voice again. 10-97, investigating structure. The recording kept looping until the static swallowed both. I tore the radio from the wall, yanked the wires out, threw it outside. It landed silent, dead. Then, from inside the trailer, it turned back on. That night I started seeing things in my dreams that I recognized, but didn't remember living. Walking through the ruins again, hearing chanting from beneath the sand, reaching down and touching something warm, alive. Each time I woke, there was dust on my hands. Red dust. Mesa dust. Mesa dust with morning. I checked the dash cam again. The footage from the last drive. It wasn't me behind the wheel. The uniform looked the same, but the face, older, thinner, pale, and the eyes, black. The figure looked at the camera, leaned close, then whispered clear as day, "You're not driving anymore." The file corrupted after that. I started writing again, notes, dates, details, anything to hold on to something real. But the pen didn't sound right on the paper. Each word dragged, slow and heavy, as if I was writing underwater. When I looked back over what I'd written, I hadn't written in English. I hadn't written in any language I knew. Just looping symbols, curling lines, the same reversed markings I'd seen burned into the hogan floor. And as I stared at them, they began to move. That's when the lights went out, all of them. The only glow came from the window, faint, pale moonlight slanting across the table. And in that light, a reflection. My reflection, standing behind me. It didn't move when I turned, didn't vanish, just stayed, still and smiling, teeth too white in the dim. Then, softly, it raised its hand and knocked on the inside of the glass. 1, 2, 3. And the sound came from behind me. I turned. Empty air. The reflection was gone. But my shadow on the wall? It waved. I didn't sleep again that night. I couldn't tell what time it was anymore. My watch had stopped at 10:37, the same time as the first call. Everything circles back. The voice, the idol, the number. Like the desert looping its own memory. I think it's rewriting me through repetition. Not real. Real. Not real. Each time I say it, the words sound less human. By morning, I wasn't sure if I'd dreamed at all, because outside on the hood of my truck, the idol sat waiting. Freshly carved, new wood, still warm. And underneath it, scrawled in the dust by a single finger, "Welcome home." By the third week, I stopped counting the days. The clocks had all frozen at different times, and I didn't trust any of them anymore. The desert outside was soaked in storm. Rain hit the windows in long, uneven strokes like fingers dragging down glass. Inside, the air buzzed, a low electric hum that didn't come from the generator. It came from the walls themselves, like the whole place was breathing. I sat at my desk, radio unplugged, gun loaded, the idol locked in the evidence box beside me. Still, I could feel it pulsing through the metal. A faint heartbeat, steady, patient. A phone rang once, then stopped. I wrote down every sound I heard: rain, wind, static hum, whispers. Always the whispers. At first, they were behind the walls, then under the floor, then under my skin. At 10:37 p.m., the lights flickered out. I grabbed the flashlight, beam cut across the room, and froze. Someone was standing outside the window, rain pouring down their shoulders, uniform soaked dark, badge glinting faintly. I raised the light. The face was mine. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared, mouth closed, smiling a smile I've never worn. I drew my weapon. The other me mirrored the motion perfectly. Every breath, every twitch. I stepped left. He stepped left. I stepped back. He stepped back. We were the same, except for the eyes. His were black glass, reflecting nothing. Then from behind him a second shadow rose, taller, thinner, its head brushing the top of the window frame. The reflection smiled wider, and the lights exploded back on, just for a second. When they went out again, the window was empty. I stumbled back, knocked the evidence box off the desk. The idol clattered to the floor. When it hit, the sound wasn't wood. It was a scream, not loud but sharp, human, like a child crying through clenched teeth. I kicked it across the room. It rolled into the darkness and stopped. The hum grew louder. Every bulb in the trailer began to pulse faintly, like the lights were breathing too. I could hear the rain turning to static outside, each drop clicking, buzzing, like a broken radio signal. Then, through the noise, a voice, whispering directly in my ear, though no one was there. "You can't shoot what you already are." My hand shook so hard the gun slipped. It hit the floor and the sound echoed too long, like the air didn't want to let it go. I don't remember walking outside, but I was there, barefoot in the rain, mud up to my ankles. The storm wasn't cold, it was hot, almost fever hot. Lightning cracked across the mesa, and for an instant, the world went still. That's when I saw them. Shapes moving through the rain. Dozens of them. Not people, not animals, just silhouettes. Each one wearing a face that wasn't theirs. They moved like smoke caught in wind, bending and unbending, their mouths opening and closing in perfect rhythm. The chanting came back then, the same rhythm as the drums from the first night. Low, constant, endless. I shouted. They stopped. Every head turned toward me at once, and for the first time they spoke in unison. You shouldn't have come. I fired into the dark. The flash lit the desert in brief, stuttering frames, each time showing them closer. Another flash, closer still. Another, now just feet away. And in the final burst of light, I saw me among them, standing perfectly still, watching myself. The gun clicked empty. When the thunder rolled away, the desert was empty again. No figures, no footprints. Just the whisper of rain sliding off the roof. I dropped the gun and stumbled inside. The idol was gone. Only a damp imprint on the floor remained. A perfect outline of a hand burned into the wood. I sat again until dawn, didn't move, didn't blink. The hum never stopped. At sunrise, the radio turned itself on again. It was my voice. Tired. Hollow. Saying words I hadn't spoken. It's not the desert that's haunted. It's the memory. Then a long exhale, like something finally breathing through me. I don't know how long I sat there after that night. Might have been hours. Might have been days. Time's different when something's watching you. It stretches, breathes, folds, like a snake wrapping around your thoughts until you forget which ones are yours. The radio kept playing on its own. No voice now, just that endless hiss. Sometimes underneath it I'd hear breathing, sometimes laughter. Sometimes the echo of my own words repeating half a beat too late. Not real. Real, not real. The journals I'd been keeping, they weren't right anymore. The handwriting changed each day, looping, curling, written backward in places. One page was filled with the same sentence written over and over, each line darker than the last. The desert remembers through me. I burned it all that morning. But as the smoke rose, I realized something awful. I could smell the same burnt sage sweetness from the hogan. I drove out there one last time. Couldn't explain why. Maybe because everything I'd seen, everything I'd felt, it all started there, and I couldn't stop until it ended there, too. Wind pressing hard against the cab. The road stretched longer than before. Even the sky looked wrong, gray and low, clouds stitched too close together. By the time I reached the ruins, the light was fading. The air didn't move, no wind, no insects, just stillness. The hogans stood like graves now, No walls left, no roof. Only the circle of ash, wide and waiting. I walked to the center, flashlight shaking in my hand. The sand felt warm under my boots, then hot, then pulsing. And when I looked down, I saw my own footprints forming beside me, fresh, like something invisible was walking in sync. Then the chanting began again. Faint at first, then clearer, rising from beneath the sand. Eli, Eli. A woman's voice this time, soft, sad, familiar. I knelt, pressed my ear to the ground, and heard a sound that nearly stopped my heart. A recording. My own voice. 10-97, investigating structure. It was coming from under the earth. I started digging, hands, knees, desperate, clawing through dirt that felt alive. The deeper I went, the louder it got, until my fingers hit metal. I pulled it free. My old body cam, the one from the first night. Caked in dirt, half broken, but still blinking red. I pressed play. The footage started with me, standing in the ruins, flashlight on. Then, nothing. Just dark shapes moving behind me, faces flickering like firelight. Then the camera turned itself around, facing me. Only it wasn't me anymore. The thing in the footage had my voice, my face, but the eyes were hollow, mouth open, chanting the words I could now hear all around me. I dropped the camera, stumbled back, but when it hit the ground, the sound didn't stop. It came from the sand, from below, and when I looked down, the sand was moving. It breathed. Each inhale sucked the light downward. Each exhale pushed up faint hands, dozens of them. Pale, reaching, trembling. They weren't trying to pull me down. They were holding me up, like they wanted me to see. The chanting grew louder until the words were clear. It remembers. It remembers. It remembers through you. I screamed, fired my gun into the sand, but each shot echoed back seconds later, as if someone below was returning the sound. I tried to run, but the air thickened, pulling against every movement like a tide. My flashlight died. The last thing I saw before darkness swallowed everything was the idol half buried again in the ash. It looked new, like it had just been carved. And this time, my name was burned into it. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember driving back. All I know is, when I opened my eyes again, I was at the station, sitting at my desk. The gun, the journal, the tape recorder, all exactly where they'd been before this began. Except, the date on the calendar was the same as the first night. 2 weeks ago. I pressed record. My hand shook, my voice hoarse, unrecognizable. This is Officer Eli Yazi. Black Mesa case file. Continuing follow-up. Then static swallowed the rest. And somewhere inside that static, my own voice whispered back, calm and quiet. You never left. Static swells. I looked up, and there I was, standing in the doorway, rain dripping from the brim of my hat, eyes black glass. He smiled and spoke in perfect unison with me. 10-97, investigating structure. Then, nothing. Just the hum of the lights and the soft click of the recorder turning itself off. They found the recorder, half buried in red sand 2 years after Officer Eli Yazi's disappearance. The desert had tried to swallow it, but the wind had other ideas. It likes to give things back when you stop looking. The casing was cracked, the wires corroded, the label almost erased. All that remained was a number, 31. When the tribal cleanup crew brought it in, the tech at the station said it was dead, no charge left. But when they replaced the batteries, the little red light blinked once, then again, and the sound came crawling through. Eli's voice, familiar cadence, calm, measured, like he was still on duty. "This is Officer Eli Yazi, continuing follow-up at Black Mesa ruins. I think I'm close now." No one recognized the name. No file, no personnel record, no family contact. The new shift sergeant, a younger man named Officer Thomas Nez, took the tape home that night. Said it gave him a chill hearing it play in an empty room. But he couldn't stop listening. Dead. He sat at his kitchen table with the recorder in front of him, steam rising from his coffee, rain pushing soft against the windows. The tape played again, the same voice looping every few minutes, sometimes clear, sometimes distorted, like the words were melting mid-sentence. "The desert remembers through sound. We keep saying the names so it doesn't forget. If you're hearing this, I didn't leave." Nez frowned. He checked the tape's length, 70 minutes, but when he fast-forwarded, it didn't end. The counter spun endlessly, clicking through numbers that shouldn't exist. He stopped it. Static hissed like shallow breathing. He pressed play again. This time, Eli's voice was different, closer, like he'd leaned into the microphone to whisper something private. "They say the land keeps what it loves, and what it loves most is silence." Then, another voice behind him on the tape, not whispering, singing. A low, rhythmic hum, like a drumbeat made of wind. Nez turned toward his window. Outside, the storm had slowed. Lightning rolled across the horizon, silent and far. Then he heard it, not from the recorder, but from outside. The same chanting, the same rhythm. He went to the window. In the yard, under the amber porch light, a man stood facing the fence line, head down, still as stone. Nez blinked, and the man was gone. He turned back to the table and froze. The tape had stopped, the red light off, but the recorder was still spinning, whirring on its own. Nez leaned close. Inside the machine, something was scratching at the tape, like fingernails against metal. He yanked the batteries out. The sound kept going. He stumbled back, hit the counter, and the coffee cup shattered. Dark liquid bled across the linoleum, pooling around the tape deck. And in the reflection, he saw movement. A shape bending forward, the outline of a man. Taller, thinner than it should have been. It was smiling. "I have it water why. I lived it plan. I have know that no one about that night. Not at first." He went back to work the next morning like nothing had happened. Filed his reports. Clocked in, clocked out. But colleagues started noticing things. He stopped looking people in the eye, started talking slower, started pausing mid-sentence like he was listening to something far away. Then one night, he signed out a vehicle without permission. Said he had to check on a noise complaint out near the old ruins. Dispatch tried to reach him an hour later. No response. At 10:37 p.m., his radio came alive. Not with static, but with his own voice. 10-97, investigating structure. Exactly the same phrase from Yazzy's tape. Same cadence, same inflection. When officers found his truck the next morning, it was parked at the edge of the mesa, engine still running, doors open, lights off. No sign of Nez, only his recorder, half buried in the sand, still spinning. And when they pressed play, two voices. It remembers, through sound. One was Eli's, the other was Nez's. Perfect harmony, like they'd rehearsed it for years. Weeks passed. The department sealed the files. The ruins were declared restricted territory. But sometimes, on night shifts, dispatchers swore they'd still hear the call come through. Unit 31, respond. Then a voice, distant, familiar, answering back. 1097, investigating structure. They'd check the roster. No one assigned that number anymore. The badge number 31 had been retired after 1996. Every so often, travelers still report strange things out there. Flickering lights over the mesa. A drumbeat echoing through the canyons. The sound of boots on gravel where no one walks. Locals don't go near that stretch after sunset. They say it's where memory thins, where the voices of the past try to climb back up through the sand. Some swear they've heard someone calling from the ruins. A voice asking for backup. A voice asking for help. And when they answer, the voice repeats their own words back to them, half a second late. Real, not real. Those who live near the mesa know better now. They say when the wind starts to hum like radio static, you roll up your windows, turn off your engine, and don't speak, because the desert is listening. And if it learns your name, it will remember you forever. 7. The last surviving technician who cleaned the original tape said he only played it once in a soundproof lab. When it ended, he swore he could still hear the echo in the floor, like the sound had sunk into the concrete itself. He left the job the next day. When asked why, he said, the voice on that tape didn't come from the recorder. It came through it. If you ever drive through Navajo County after midnight and your radio catches a signal buried under static, don't listen too closely, because you'll hear him, and maybe you'll answer. 1097, investigating structure, and after that, sometimes the radio says your name too. And if you're hearing this, it already knows you. You don't believe me, do you?